Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Ghostly Crimes, where the news carries a chill that lingers long after the broadcast ends. I'm Nicholas, and tonight we step into the shadows of a story that's gripping the nation. The deadly Minneapolis immigration raid, the political fallout, and the whispers of something darker moving behind the scenes. This is no ordinary crime beat. This is a tale of power, tragedy, and the ghosts that haunt every decision made in high places. Let's begin. The heart of tonight's story is the tragic death of Alex Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse and U.S. citizen, shot and killed by federal agents during an immigration enforcement operation on January 24. What began as a routine raid has spiraled into a national firestorm, with videos circulating online that appear to show agents wrestling Pretti to the ground before the fatal shots rang out. Those images contradict the early administration narrative that branded him a domestic terrorist planning to massacre law enforcement, a claim that has since been called unsubstantiated and, by many, deeply disturbing. Pretti's friends and family describe a man who spent his days saving lives in the hospital, biking scenic trails, walking his dog, and helping neighbors. They call the government's portrayal sickening lies, and tonight, those words echo louder than ever. The latest development is seismic. Gregory Bovino, the senior Border Patrol official leading President Trump's on-the-ground immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, is expected to leave the city soon. This move comes just 2 days after Bovino publicly made that explosive and unproven accusation about Pretti. 2 U.S. officials confirm Bovino's departure is imminent, and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey says some of the federal agents deployed to the city will begin pulling out as early as Tuesday. Frey revealed this after a direct phone call with President Trump on Monday, a conversation that, on the surface, appears to have cooled tensions, but beneath it carries layers of tension and unspoken questions. President Trump, facing backlash even from some of his most loyal supporters over the handling of Pretti's death, has shifted tone dramatically the past 48 hours. First, he announced he is sending his border czar, Tom Homan, to Minnesota to take direct control of operations on the ground, with Homan reporting personally to the president. Then, in a social media post, Trump described a very good call with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, claiming they were on a similar wavelength and focused on coordinating around criminals already in state custody. Trump emphasized that Homan would reach out to Walz to discuss next steps. For a moment, it looked like de-escalation, but Governor Walz's office tells a slightly different story. They called the call productive, but highlighted topics Trump did not mention in his post: the urgent need for independent investigations into not only Alex Pretti's killing, but also the earlier fatal shooting of Renee Good by federal agents on January 7. Walz's team also pushed for a reduction in the number of federal agents in the state, a force that swelled to as many as 3,000 in what ICE described as the largest single immigration operation ever conducted in Minnesota. That scale, and the speed of it, has left many asking, why Minneapolis? Why now? And what exactly are we not being told? White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt tried to steady the narrative Monday, insisting the administration's attacks on Pretti did not come from President Trump himself, while still laying blame at the feet of Walz and other Democrats. She sought to distance the president from the harshest rhetoric of his allies, including Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff whose comments have fueled outrage. Yet even as she spoke, the administration's position felt unsteady, like a house built on shifting ground. Other Democrats. She sought to distance the president from the harshest rhetoric of his allies, including Stephen Miller, the deputy chief of staff whose comments have fueled outrage. Yet even as she spoke, the administration's position felt unsteady, like a house built on shifting ground. Adding to the tension, President Trump met for more than 2 hours Monday evening in the Oval Office with Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and her top aide, Corey Lewandowski. Sources briefed on the meeting say no jobs were threatened, but the length and focus of the discussion signal real concern inside the White House about the political and public fallout from Pretti's death. This is not just a local tragedy anymore. It's a national mirror reflecting deeper divisions, mistrust, and the cost of aggressive enforcement when the human toll becomes impossible to ignore. On the legal front, the fight for truth is intensifying. A federal judge in Minnesota is weighing a request from state investigators to extend a temporary order preventing the federal government from destroying evidence related to Pretti's killing. Local law enforcement was initially denied access to the scene and key evidence, raising serious questions about transparency. State officials argue they need full cooperation to conduct an independent investigation, a request that has not yet been ruled on, leaving the case suspended in a tense limbo. Ions about transparency. State officials argue they need full cooperation to conduct an independent investigation, a request that has not yet been ruled on, leaving the case suspended in a tense limbo. Separately, lawyers for the state of Minnesota and the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul are pressing a federal judge to issue a temporary halt on the deployment of some 3,000 immigration agents. During arguments, the judge questioned whether the request was overly broad, but also pressed the Trump administration's lawyers on the true motives behind the crackdown. No ruling has come yet. But the courtroom felt charged, as though everyone present understood the stakes go far beyond policy. This is about accountability, about what happens when power moves too quickly and leaves bodies in its wake. Tonight, we remember Alex Pretti not as a statistic or a headline, but as a man who spent his life healing others, only to have his own life ended in circumstances still shrouded in conflicting accounts. We remember Renee Good, whose death on January 7th has been overshadowed but must not be forgotten. And we remember the city of Minneapolis, a place now scarred by protests, tear gas, National Guard presence, and a deep sense that something fundamental has been broken. This story is not over. Investigations are just beginning. Questions are multiplying. And somewhere in the shadows of these events, the ghosts of decisions made in distant rooms continue to whisper. Who really pays the price when the line between enforcement and tragedy disappears? And we remember the city of Minneapolis, a place now scarred by protests, tear gas, National Guard presence, and a deep sense that something fundamental has been broken. This story is not over. Investigations are just beginning. Questions are multiplying. And somewhere in the shadows of these events, the ghosts of decisions made in distant rooms continue to whisper. Who really pays the price when the line between enforcement and tragedy disappears? That's tonight's deep dive on ghostly crimes. If this story chilled you, if it made you question the official narrative, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next haunting update. Drop a comment below. What part of this feels the most unsettling to you? Share this video with someone who needs to see the unseen side of the news. This is Nicholas, signing off from the edge. Stay vigilant, stay safe, and remember, the truth doesn't always rest quietly. Good night.